Chapter 9. You Mighta Known. Ren. That person. The not her. She. She was having dinner with Wendell Ma. She was some famous captain. She was a fucking ancient. Did she feel differently walking those corridors? Did she speak eloquently? Did people froth and fawn over her because she was a fucking ancient? Captain Ma had called Ren earlier that day and explained there were now two of her, the other called Karenna, who was a fucking ancient, and so was now, at least to Ren's fellow Corrales, pretty much an immortal demigod. Well, slap her fanny and call her Jane. She hadn't been expecting that. She had hyperventilated and shit out a stream of profanities, causing Captain Ma's lips to purse in disapproval, which, whatever. He hated her. He hated her because he listened to Denold. Ren had calmed long enough to be told that this new not Ren was coming here to this ship. This new not Ren was having dinner with Captain Ma. Yeah, Ren remembered her first dinner with Ma. It was pretty much the first stop on the Denold Riley gaslighting tour. And so, Ren planned to make herself scarce. Ren arrived at the intel watch, blinking to adjust to the dark surroundings. The green glow of the large tactical display inset along one bulkhead, leaving color casts everywhere. Seriously, the fleet thought intel geeks were vampires. Time to see what her new accesses were about to give her. Were any of Khayyam's issues connected to the anomaly that affected Hawking, rocketing them forward into time, messing with their drive? If so, why wasn't it affecting this future ship, all the way in Baumgarten? What connected the two? It apparently had been over 6 decades. The Union never figured out what was causing the unusual anomalies. There were only a few isolated cases in her time. Maybe it never spread beyond that. She wouldn't know unless the future ship, the Khayyam, deigned to share more information about what caused the sudden lack of the nature of propulsion. The vial. Perla had said Lanson needed her to do his paperwork. With all that had happened, had he analyzed the vial yet? Had he even marked it into evidence? She tapped a few keys. No. Typical. That was a violation of protocol in itself, but chances were Lanson didn't even know the proper procedures. Ren sat back in her chair. Maybe she could offer him a trade. She'd process the vial for him. She would not ask for her access back in return. The less she mentioned that, the more likely he'd forget again that he'd taken them away, and the easier she could ease back into her job with her accesses already illegally restored. Instead, she wouldn't ask for anything at all. That was it. Slowly start helping him with his job. Slowly render him obsolete. Not fighting him anymore. And at some point, somehow, she'd strike. Get her career back. Her life. Unlikely, of course. What was that phrase? The insult Baba would mutter under his breath at their neighbor? "'Twas all. Become dust." Fitting. A disintegration of the corporeal form into nothing but particles of dust was kind of like how life was these days. Ren rubbed her temples. Her mind was wandering. No. Stay busy. Anything not to think about the bizarro her that was going to be here, on this ship. Hiding in the watch. Who was she kidding? A few hours later, Ren lurked in the shadows of the transfer deck between the bay and the hab ring, hidden behind a slightly gapped door to a meeting room no one ever used. First up, a man, assured, strutting. Captain DuPont, she presumed, from the excited conversations that had taken place over the last day. He had longish, straight, jet-black hair he kept ruffling. Ren watched, fascinated. His father had been some sort of rebel leader, went the whispers. He looked dangerous himself, flinty eyes, sharp nose. Like a pirate, maybe. He seemed fluid and comfortable in who he was. Ren was envious and drawn to him at the same time. And then, there she was. She looked like Ren, but with different hair, the wild curls pretty much gone with the short bob that framed her face in loose waves. But she wasn't old. She looked just like Ren, with that indefinable late-20s look. No wonder her haircut was professional, because who the hells would take her seriously otherwise? She probably styled it every day and teased it out. Ren touched her own mane ruefully. It was only not Ren and the dark-haired pirate captain walking the deck, no Captain Ma or Donald. A few curious looks in their direction, but the crew had been prepped. Boy, had they been prepped. Pretty much a don't bother the new captain on pain of death type prepped. She looked intimidating anyway, and the look on her face. Ren knew that face. It was game face. Wait, that was fake game face. The fucking ancient was fucking nervous. They walked by. Ren leaned forward to take a closer look at the rank insignia, and boom! Of course she fell out the door. How could this day have ended without her falling out a door, right into her doppelganger? Ren cursed. The pirate like Captain DuPont reacted first, moving into a defensive position, but stilled when she raised her hand. Ren bounced back up. They first stood staring, and then they circled each other like a matador and a bull. The few people near them in the sparse corridor went by only flicking their eyes in their direction, like they were attempting to not rubberneck on pain of death, and it added an eerie feeling of being in the spotlight, in a play, with extras milling around them. Well, hi, Not Ren said, finally, with what seemed like amusement. Condescending amusement. Her voice seemed softer than Ren's, less rough. Her eyes kinda crinkled in that wise way old ladies' eyes crinkled, but of course she hadn't aged a day. This was her. When Ren first joined the hawking crew, she had been so ready, so proud, so sure she was going to make a difference and have pride in everything she did. But then in the last few years she had wondered why she had even bothered at all, with anything. Anything and everything felt like a boulder permanently attached to her chest, and she was still a salmon swimming up, and why? Why, what was at the end? That Sisyphean rock would flatten her. That's what was at the end. Whatever. Metaphors were hard. Apparently not Ren eventually reached the pinnacle. But you won't, Randy, the mental twat face said. You're not even an ancient. You're never going to be her. All this anxiety was unspoken, of course. Outwardly, Ren shook her head. You've got to be kidding me. You got to be shitting me. No, really, holy fucking shit. Not Ren burst out laughing. Is that what you said when they told you? Pretty much, Ren said. Oh shit. That was a captain in front of her. Ma'am. Oh, piss off with that ma'am bullshit, she said dismissively. Thank the ancients. You lead your crew with that mouth? Ren asked. A barking laugh. Actually, no. Silence. Well, Not Ren said. I've got a... Seriously, Kay? The other captain broke in. Not now, Max, Not Ren replied. You're meeting your long-lost whatever the hell she is and you're just gonna split? He smiled at Ren. Hiya, I'm Max DuPont. They shook hands, Ren finally feeling that sense of surreal that somehow she had avoided all day. Here, the intensity of Captain DuPont manner washing over her. The other her, the Karenna, smiled again and put her hand on Ren's shoulder. I'm not trying to split, she said, sending narrowed eyes to Captain DuPont. After dinner, 2100 hours, your ship time, my office, you can meet me in the hangar and ride back out with me on my shuttle. Then off she went, the Not Ren, and her pirate, to their dinner with Ma. The night Ren first had dinner at Ma's place and shipped that accursed statue, Donald had kissed her on the cheek and said he'd call her tomorrow. But he didn't call her that day, or the next. On the third day on shift, she had tried to catch Donald's eye and smile, but he had looked at her disinterestedly. He didn't give Ren a hard time during that shift. She just didn't matter. You said it was fine, Ren had asked in surprise after she caught up with him. Of course I said that. I'm not going to make a scene in front of my boss. Unlike you, apparently. He had kept his voice quiet and still. It was an accident, she had said, her voice wavering. She had found herself studying his emotions, not sure which Donald she was about to get. Keep telling yourself that, he had said, shaking his head, mournful. All you had to do was eat the steak, but you decided you had to get that fork out, because you can't lose, even if it's to a fork. This is what I mean about your pig-headedness. Vaguely disappointed. She had reacted badly to his implication they break up, and then he responded surprised, as if he had never suggested a thing, and laughed. Cruel. Oh, you're a piece of work. You really need to think about your arrogance and narcissism. Soul doesn't revolve around you, you know. He then smiled, fond. But that's what I'm here for. He had grabbed her then and kissed her slow on the mouth, stroked her hair, and said he'd call her that night. And he did. And Ren had been happy. She had been so happy. I bet you're all respectable and stuff, Ren said to the older her as they sat in the office just off Khayyam's bridge. I am indeed respectable and shit. Karenna stared at her again. Her eyes roved over Ren maternally, so impossibly not Ren, but Ren at the same time. Ren used to be a superstar. Something had changed. Maybe it was Donald's fault. Probably hers, too. She drank more and became more obnoxious, and she closed off her friends. People didn't look at Ren and see Ren. They saw a screw-up with no future. Maybe Ren should have transferred off the ship entirely, but honestly, and she didn't like admitting this except in her deepest, quietest moments, she was used to it. Them. Donald. Sadiq. She didn't want to leave them. She wanted them to... Never mind. It was stupid. Regardless, now, maybe they'd look at this older her and notice Ren's potential. Or would they even think them the same? She was an ancient. Ren was not. Her eyes wandered to the awards and commendations Karenna had hanging up. Nice office. Thanks. Coffee? Ren shook her head no, even as Karenna yawned and poured her own. Obviously, the ships needed to get into sync. She ambled over to look at a few images and picked one up, Karenna with a dark-skinned man with laughing eyes. So, Ren said, you're married. Her finger fiddled with the non-existent ring. Karenna wasn't wearing one. Didn't ancients usually wear some sort of ring denoting their status? Karenna handed her a mug anyway. Decaf, she clarified. It'd be nice if you two met. Ren nodded, not sure what to say. Ana Baba? She asked about her parents. Karenna shook her head. Gone. Pretty long life. I never really spoke to them. She looked at Ren curiously. Does that bother you? Nah. Ren picked at her fingernails. Her relationship with her parents was complicated, all the way from when she left Alpha Centauri, went off to Sol and Earth, and to the Fleet Academy serving the Union, off to a coveted spot in the Bookman program, graduating as a Bookman medalist, where she was told she was gifted and would be a great leader one day. Which meant, of course, now, plain old Ren, with a dead-end career on the prestigious ship Hawking, was even more a failure. Karenna broke the silence. So, how's life? Usually, Ren would quip, continuing to be a disappointment to my mother, but that was moot now. I hate my boss, I hate my ex, I hate not having my best friend, she said instead. I'm sorry, Karenna said quietly. Ren cleared her throat self-consciously. Apparently, she had stopped joking and instead was unloading on someone she had just met. No, look, I don't mean to bring you down. This is really weird. How was being on Hawking? She asked to change the subject. It was like, holy shit, I'm on Hawking, Karenna answered. Nervous? Gods, yes. Karenna frowned and clenched her hands, looking like she wanted to say something. It's just not the weirdness, it's a sense of responsibility and guilt for... Anyway. She waved a hand, dismissing the words. But you know what? Max and I showed up to Ma's door, and I realized we hadn't brought anything for the host, and I could have kicked myself. But then, here, Karenna stifled a giggle, he had the statue. Remember the chip statue? And he had put it back on the table and encased it with a force shield. I had been telling that old story for years, trying to keep my junior officers from being nervous around me. Such a delightful development. Yeah, delightful. Delightful. The coffee suddenly went bitter. What do I call you? Karenna wondered, oblivious to the disgust roiling in Ren's mouth. Ren shook away her resentment. I mean, I'm Ren, you're Karenna, right? She said, not mentioning the detours into she and not Ren that led her eventually to that point. But you know, what are you to me? Her head hurt. Sisters, Karenna said, suddenly, declaratively. Kiss Kardashler, Ren repeated. Family, returned the thought. The ship had gone haywire just 2 days before, and something had called out home. But was this the family she really wanted? Ren eyed this captain, this not her, a bit too smooth, too smarmy. Is this who I become? It makes no sense, but we need a framework, right? At Ren's nod, Karenna continued. So if we stop referring to ourselves as each other, maybe we can stop weirding out about it. I mean, maybe we can try it. Twins? Or maybe you're my older sister, Ren said, agreeing to be agreeable to get this over with. Either, whatever works in the moment, right? Maybe then we can get on with the work of becoming friends. That seemed a big ask, but Ren didn't voice that. Sisters, Ren said, sticking out her hand. They shook on it, touching hands, connecting physically with someone who should not exist in the same space. A strange intimacy to it. Ren pulled back first. So, parallel universe. Has to be, the captain said. Not that we detected any difference in our histories up to the point. It looks like the time travel itself would be the divergence point. So we're actually missing back in our universe? Ren asked. Seems so. She paused. I wish I knew what changed, she mused. The thing that caused the divergence. I brushed through that anomaly. You know that? But your whole ship went through. Hawking, my Hawking, was dead on the water. We effectively had to get towed. Were you also in fertilizer, finding a vial of some unknown substance? Ren asked. To her surprise, the older her gave her a conspiratorial look. Maybe. What? Karenna said, seemingly changing tacks. I distantly remembered that. What did you end up doing with it? Ren scrunched her brow. It's in processing now. I had wondered if it was connected to. She waved her hands. Since the source had said something about propulsion. Did you ever figure it out? Karenna shook her head. It's all vague. I don't quite remember. Well, now, mine in the first meeting together. Wasn't that interesting?